I have to be honest with you. I make a lot of videos on this channel about becoming a game developer in 2024, starting your own studio in 3 months or whatever, but I think that we need to be real for a moment. And I kind of want to say that for 2024, I don't think you should become a full-time game developer. This hurts me to say because I am a full-time game developer, and before you go like, oh, he's just trying to get rid of the competition so there's more people playing his game, I have a few reasons as to why I think the gaming landscape, and especially like indie game development scene right now, is probably in the worst shape it has been since I've been alive, which is like the early 2000s. Maybe 2008 was kind of similar, but back then indie games weren't that big of a thing yet. So I know a lot of you guys, and I even like kind of sell it. I'm not that scummy that I'm like selling you the dream that, oh, you can easily become a game developer and travel the world and live your dream making games and a lot of money. But I do think that there can definitely be a twisted perception of, hey, I'm doing this, I look like I'm successful, and then you also maybe want to quit your boring day job just like I did to make games and pursue your passion and just be very happy. And I don't know if you can tell this, but if you go back to my very old videos, I did not have eye bags like this. And I haven't really been commenting that much before on the game dev scene. I mentioned layoffs here and there, but I think this is just a video where I'm going to talk a bit more about how I see, from like the industry perspective, the game development scene evolving, and I think also how you can still make the most out of it, maybe not as a full-time game developer, but how you can get out of it as a better game developer than whatever you may be right now. I quit my own job a year ago to become a full-time game developer, but honestly, I don't think I would do the same thing right now anymore. I've built up some momentum, but if I had to start from zero, be like, okay, I'm gonna take the plunge right now and become a full-time game developer, if I was like in the current situation, I think I wouldn't do it, and I think that would be the right move. So why is this? I have 4 main reasons, and the first one is, like I already said before, the games industry is currently going through some enormous layoffs. So last year, about 10,000 people lost their jobs in both AAA studios as well as a lot of small indie development studios that had to close their doors. And this year is not really looking much better because we're already at 5,600 people in January 2024 alone, with Unity cutting 25% of their workforce. A few days ago, Microsoft and Blizzard also fired like 1,900 people, and Riot Games has also fired a lot of really good game developers. And this kind of like, especially the latest one from Blizzard, that was the one where I was like, okay, I think I need to make this video, because that means that the game development scene is going to be not good right now. I think the term is like a bear market or something. I'm not a stock guy, but basically, if you're graduating right now from game development school, your life is going to be pretty miserable in finding a job, because suddenly you have all these highly talented people who have years of work experience already on their resume that are looking for the same jobs that you're going to be applying to, because they just need a job at any point right now if they have like families they need to provide for, and competing with those is going to be really hard for you. I've gone to a few like intern and career fairs, and the people there who've graduated, they are kind of, well, it's no better way to say this, it's looking very bleak for them. Like right now, almost there's no interest. There's like a few jobs, but they're so competitive where like one job posting has up to like 100 applicants. It's very similar to the tech scene. Like last year it started there as well, where a lot of big companies have been firing a lot of talent, and if they can't find new jobs at AA, AAA studios or whatever, well, where do they go then? Well, they'll probably dip their toes into indie development. This is something you see with a lot of like new and upcoming studios as well, is they're made up from like a few people who have long-term experience already working at AAA studios first as like really good gameplay programmers or game designers or artists or whatever, and now they take their first steps into indie development. And once again, this time you're not competing with them for like a job posting, but you're going to be competing with them in terms of getting your game out there and selling your game. And look, we have to be honest, like you can be a very highly motivated individual, but if you're just starting out in game development right now, you're like just getting to know Godot, and then your competition is going to be studios that are made up of indie veterans who are like, hey, you know, who are now like going to venture into the indie world. Of course, they will still have a little bit of a different working methodology, but in the end, you will be competing with that as well. And that means that there's going to be more indie games as well. And I'll dive into the more indie games topic in a second, but that's my main thing. Like the competition is extremely fierce right now. And I guess the only good advantage is if you're watching this and you like are running a studio already that is like not doing horribly financially, it is going to be very easy for you to find solid talent that like can work at your company. But that is not our audience, really. I don't really think there are many people running studios who watch these videos. It's people like you and me who are like maybe some friends, probably solo, starting your own studio, very little money, very little like education, experience in the game development world. Competing with them is going to be really hard. And then the next thing is that it's not just the game development studios that have had very big cuts in terms of how many people are working there, but also publishers. There was this golden period of like 2017 to 2020, I would say, where everyone was selling the dream of, oh, just pitch an idea, go to GDC with like an iPad and a pitch deck, and you're going to get publisher funding pretty easily. That ship has sailed so far right now. A lot of publishers are doing horribly. Tiny Build, for example, has laid off giant pieces of staff. Their stock is down a lot. And they have very much said that, look, we need to take a step back and focus on projects that are more safe, focusing more on projects that they know are going to be more stable and give them a return on their investment. There is no wild VC money, so to say, but then publisher money instead, but it's the same concept, I find, just being thrown around. You can't just pitch an open world survival game anymore and get money thrown at you. And once again, who are you going to be competing with when you go to these publishers? Well, it's going to be probably the same people who had AAA experience, who are starting their own little studio right now, who are going to go for a more business focused look maybe, and less of a, hey, this is a cool game idea I had, let me pitch it. And they, well, if a publisher has to choose between you, a solo developer with no formal education in game development, no like hardcore experience, maybe haven't really released games before, just some prototypes, versus a team of industry veterans, and even they are probably going to have some issues finding funding because the publisher market simply is really rough right now. You're probably not going to get that golden ticket that you're hoping for, that is promised to you by maybe even some other YouTubers that you watch. And at the end of the day, you do need money to make your games. We're running into some like issues regarding that as well, where we now have to decide how much budget do we actually still have left to allocate to Songs of Everjade before we have to like call it a sunk cost, because we encountered some more struggles. We'll dive into that in like a video, I think after the Steam Next Fest as well, when we know more where we stand, but it's also not going too hot there. If you don't have any monetary backing from a publisher, from grants or whatever, it's going to be really tough to weather that storm. And then let's say, okay, you have enough money to sustain making your own game. You can like fund the development, like however long it may take, whether it's 3 months or a year, you have that backup of, I have this much time to make my game. The issue there is as well that the gaming marketplace, like Steam, has become even more cutthroat and has gotten even more hard to stand out. Last year, around 13,400 games released. That is both indie and AAA, like everything basically. There's of course a lot of shitty AI asset flips in there as well, but that's still a very big increase versus the year before, and this means that more and more it doesn't matter how good your game is. The thing that matters much more is it very visual, is it very attractive for people to buy, and how big of a marketing ad spend do you have basically. I don't want to be too much of a downer, but I think that a lot of the ideas that you guys have that would be really great and that could be like underdog games just a few years ago or like hidden gems simply won't be able to surface up through the enormous slog pile of mediocre games with big ad spends or like some publisher funding behind it that really focus purely on shipping stuff as fast as possible, building up hype around it, and then getting the bag and continuing. I don't want to be like extremely down here. Okay, I know the tone of this video is very depressing, but it is going to be much harder, especially once again, 75% of our audience is programmers, not visual standouts. It's going to get harder and harder. Whereas a few years ago, you could make a game with Cinti assets, which looked acceptable and just ship that. I think it's getting harder now because one, more and more people are using Cinti assets, but that's not really the problem. The thing is the competition has gotten much better than Cinti assets. Once you have those dedicated artists who know what they're doing, who design the games with a visual focus first, because it is a visual medium as well, competing with that is going to be a lot harder. And this is something that we also once again learned the hard way. Forge industry is not profitable. Like, we've had a few really good streaks recently with Capitalism and Economy Fest and the Steam Winter Sale and the Steam Autumn Sale, but still, we are nowhere near selling enough yet to actually afford everyone to have wages, basically. And if that's what I want to warn you about, if you have that runway to make the game and nothing afterwards, there is a very big chance that you're going to be doing everything right and still your game's not gonna sell. This was something that I'm kind of salty about. Chris Zukowski very often gives the advice of, oh, the genres that sell best are like horror games and like crafting games or like automation games, like city builder games. They'll sell like hotcakes. And then I'm sitting there like, we did that. Forge Industry did not sell like hotcakes at all. And then I asked him, like, where did it go wrong? And there's no real reason for it. I think it's Picard who said it. I'm not a Trekkie, but it's like, you can do everything right and still lose. And that is something that has also gotten more and more prevalent recently. And then the final issue is as well that the environment we're in, with all of those layoffs, with inflation, with groceries seemingly costing double of what it cost just 3 years ago, we're in a situation where games have definitely become a luxury product. And that is not good for us game developers, because if the economy is doing worse, if people are saving more money, if people are like more defensive with their spending, that means that games are probably one of the first things they're spending money on that's going to go. Because of course, impulse buying a $15 game when you have a stable income, when you don't really have to worry that much, you can save some money as well still, then it's a no-brainer. That's what a lot of people do then. But if you're reaching a situation like the current economy where people are struggling a bit more, then games will sell less, similar to the 2008 crisis once again. And that is something you need to keep in mind as well, that releasing games right now may not be the smartest move. Now, what should you do? Because I have like just been hammering in like the depression basically. Like I have been thinking about this a lot recently. But I think not all is bad. I don't think you should like unsubscribe to this channel because then I get no more money. But I think there's still some good things here. This video is really just on more of a reality check of the full-time indie game dev dream. I think if you're considering right now, like, oh, maybe in like a few months I can quit my job and become a full-time game developer, I highly ask you to reconsider or at least recalculate your budgets, recalculate your runway, and see when are you actually going to be releasing a game, and planning some very worst case scenarios as well as what you would do there. If you have a somewhat stable job that you don't absolutely hate, I would stick with it for now and stick to being a part-time game developer. Stick to just working on it in the weekends, honing your skills and whatever. That's also something that all of the videos we make on this channel, I upload 2 times a week, but the videos that we released like a year ago, they're still going to be valid 3 years from now. So you can keep learning in the meantime, you can keep improving, but right now is a good point to learn the engine, to already make some first prototypes, make some smaller games, go through that cycle already of releasing a game, if you can, like make a smaller game, and then just face plant right into the wall when you put it on Steam and you release it with like 200 wishlists because you couldn't do any marketing or you couldn't really figure out what worked. Just so you are ready for maybe in a year from now when the economy has gotten a bit more stable, people can afford groceries, companies aren't doing mass layoffs like every week anymore, then you'll still be much better prepared to become a full-time game developer. In the end, if we're being honest, you're probably not going to die in the next year. Like, you still have quite some time ahead of you. I think our audience on average is like 30 to 40 years, so I hope you have at least another 40 years ahead of you that you could do game development. Just weather this year out and work on improving already, but don't take that leap. That's the main thing. Game development is nice, but game development to pay the bills as your main income source, it is not fun. I can tell you that right now. I'm gonna like keep smiling on these videos as much as I can because that's what gets the views. But I just want you to know that, hey, right now, game dev isn't doing too hot. Anyways, that's all I really have to say. If this is the first video you see, we're game developers. We've documented our own game development process, so you can watch if you want how horrible or how successful in your eyes our launch has been, some of the things we've learned about game development and how we're applying those learnings to our next games. So if you're interested in that, be sure to head down below and subscribe. It really helps us out. I also quickly want to plug like our Patreon if you want bonus videos. We actually upload bonus videos every Monday where it's more of an unfiltered deep dive. The videos are like 20 to 40 minutes long about thoughts I have about game development, how we run our studio, and just some other like random stuff. Anyways, thank you all for watching. I hope you keep making games. Don't let this video discourage you too much, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!